We're back. This is Arts Alive. I'm Linda Philippi. My next guest is Linda Kuhlmann, and Linda is a returning guest. She's here to talk about the further adventures of her book, The Red Boots, and what she's up to these days. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad you could be
good
here.
To see you, Linda.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about your book, The Red Boots. I think the last time you were here, this was in galleys or whatever they call it.
Exactly.
And we had the
we
cover.
were still doing some final edits.
Mm-hmm.
It was published by the same publisher that did Koenig's Wonder,
Mm-hmm.
Lumina Press, out of Florida. And it's just been flying. I'm having so much fun with this.
Okay.
It is an international murder mystery, and it has a serial killer that's in Ireland that follows the protagonist, Shannon O'Toole, who's a sculptor in Dublin, when she decides to go to Oregon, which is where she was born, in Duffer, Oregon.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of espionage and gallery, what do they call it? The underside of the gallery world and such.
Okay.
Yeah, the seamy side of the gallery
Sure.
world. And also...
Underneath the wine and cheese reception.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lurks the heart of darkness.
Yeah, what they do with those paintings to
Yeah.
make a little money and such. And it was fun researching, and actually there's a murder scene in Paris, so you get to travel in this one. So
I
it's
love
kind
it.
of fun.
Who needs an airplane ticket, huh?
Exactly.
So how's the marketing going for you?
Marketing's going very well. I did a lot of number of events here in Oregon, but I also did my what I call friends and family tour in Illinois, which is where I was raised. I had a class reunion going on, so I hit all my
perfect.
classmates.
Everybody has to buy a copy of my book.
Oh, it
Like,
was
open
wonderful.
up your overcoat.
It was wonderful. And getting to see those people again. It
Sure.
was just marvelous. But then also California, Washington, and other states around. So
So when you're
it was marvelous.
doing a book tour these days, you're pretty much doing it on your own.
Pretty much, yes.
I mean, you're like
Yeah.
arranging the bookstores and finding the places to do the signings
Exactly.
and that whole thing.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
all working
also
up ahead.
schlepping the actual books
Oh,
themselves?
of course, or
Okay.
sending them ahead.
Okay.
I sometimes do. That's
Okay.
why the friends and family.
Ah.
Wherever there's friends and family, I try to go to
Oh,
for
yeah. So you can send the books on
an
ahead.
event. Yeah.
Okay.
It works out real well.
Well, didn't this start out as a screenplay and then you adapted it as a novel?
I did. It was kind of backwards. Most
Mm-hmm.
people will do it the other way. At the time that I got the idea for the Red Boots, I was taking a screenwriting class in
Oh.
PSU in Portland, and the screenwriting was fantastic. It was an exercise in writing that was different for me, but I appreciate the exercise. But I am a novelist. I've learned that in the long run. But adapting it brought the characters so much more richly to me, and a lot more different events that I didn't have time for in the script.
Because yeah, when you're writing a screenplay, you can't give a lot of direction. You can't give a lot of description.
Exactly.
Because I mean,
It's sight and sound.
You might write it for somebody tall and thin and blonde, and they're going to cast a little brunette. So really, it
Exactly.
doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of leeway with that, right? Or if you do, they'll just adapt it right
Sure.
out from under you. So,
Sure.
okay.
Exactly. And so that it was, like I said, it was a good exercise to do, but
Mm-hmm.
by adapting it back to novel, for me, it helped to flush out a lot
Sure.
of the missing pieces that I found in film, which you do, because in a film, you can get a one shot and it can tell you so many words that you can't get in a novel, or in the script itself. It just tells so much more of the story than you can do with having to paint the words in a novel.
But if you're a
So it's
novelist,
fun.
that's the fun.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. I'm a painter.
Now you brought a trailer with you.
I did.
Okay.
Steve Cox helped me to develop this. He, at the time, I think it was Strike Zone Creative, I think was
Okay.
the name of his company. But I've worked with Steve before at Gallery Theater, so I've been in the theater world with him, and he also did the voiceover for me, as well as taking the still shots that we took for the film and putting it together. So it's about a minute something in YouTube.
Okay.
But we were developing it because I was researching different ways to market, and I found a lot of book trailers out there on YouTube, and I thought, well, why not? This has
It's
been
a
a
great
movie in my
idea.
head.
Sure.
Yeah. And so we ended up with doing a kind of a big treasure hunt. I wrote the script and developed the prop list and the settings that I wanted, setting the stage, so to speak. And so then we started looking around and found that Currents Gallery was gracious enough to let us use their front of their store as our Dublin gallery that we
nice,
built.
okay.
Got friends and family and actors from Gallery Theater to come in to help stage it. Champagne, jewels, furs.
Fun.
It was so fun to put
Okay,
together.
cool.
And my husband did all the still shots for me
Nice.
for the show. And then we ended up with a later treasure hunt to go find the log house, the father figure, the redhead that's Shannon O'Toole, getting Harley Davidson and 30-something hunky guy
Oh, how fun.
to be next to the bike, which was the Jake in the story. And also I needed an Appaloosa, and his name actually happened to be Harley. He's out of Yamhill.
Oh, my goodness.
And then we needed a body bag. So
Okay.
it was like trying to find all these pieces to put
yeah.
it together. and
For-
it
for
was
the trailer.
For the trailer.
Are
Yeah.
should we show it?
I think that'd be a great
Okay,
idea.
let's do it.
Shannon O'Toole, Dublin's new sculptor, is about to begin her first world art tour. She's frightened by the news that the Dublin serial killer is still out there. The killer's newest victim has just been discovered by the Irish Garda. Shannon hates being in the limelight of the art world, but her demanding mother controls her life. Until she finds a letter from her estranged father, begging her to return to her birthplace in Oregon. Shannon sees the news about the women murdered by the killer and is shocked by her resemblance to the victims. She decides to leave her art tour and find her father. But has the killer chosen his next victim? A long way from Ireland, Shannon has returned to Oregon. She's nervous about seeing her father again after 20 years of separation. But Jake McLeod, Shannon's childhood friend, doubts that she will stay this time. Shannon is glad she came, until she realizes she may have to rely on her own inner strength to protect the one she loves. But is Shannon really safe?
I love it.
It was fun.
You know, I've never even heard of a book trailer before.
I had neither.
Now I know what they are. Now I know
Yes.
what that looks like. Wow. So this thing is
I'm
up and
anxious
launched.
to do one for Koenig's Wonder.
I'm
or
sure
something.
you are.
It was-
Yeah. So are you doing other writing projects as well?
Well, Shameless Marketing is a nonfiction. It's Shameless Marketing for Writers.
Okay.
It's a nonfiction book that I wrote just based on my experiences marketing as I've done in the last 2 novels that I've published. And it was inspired by, or the cover was inspired by a young man that I heard speaking about marketing his own work. And he was talking about being at a basketball stadium. And he took his novel and he was holding it with the cover showing. And he started looking around the audience like he was trying to find someone up there, you know. But how many pairs of eyes saw that cover? And it was like, oh, shameless. And that's when it started falling to place for me.
Oh, that's a good. Okay, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just sort of a compendium, if you will, of advice, of trial and error, things that have worked for
Exactly.
you. Here's what not to try. Don't bother. That's a dead alley or something like that. Blind alley.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, and I also included some of the forms that I've had over the years that I've found helpful, and some samples of like my sell sheet press releases
Oh, okay.
that I got from my publisher. They did a lot of that work for me, which was wonderful.
Oh, nice.
But the cover was designed by Tracy Hayes. She's with Pastiche Studios here in McMinnville.
I know Tracy.
And oh, good. And she just sort of did the young woman standing there holding a book. And I decided to be shameless about this, so I asked her to put a cover of my own book in
Well,
there.
why not?
Why not? Promote my own on my own marketing
course.
book. So it's on Kindle only at this time. And I don't know if I'll get to having it done as a paper product. At this point, it's more workable as Kindle. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just keep it
Exactly.
simple.
Yeah.
Now, so what about any new novels that you might be working
The
on?
newest one I'm currently working on is the first sequel to Koenig's Wonder.
Okay.
And it is, I really hadn't planned on doing a series, but it just sort of developed that way.
They knocked on your head?
Exactly. The characters talk after a while. But the second book is going to be called Koenig Spirit.
Okay.
I think it's a working title right now. But it's also going to be kind of pick up where the last one's ended. In '69, when Koenig's Wonder, the horse, wins the Derby, fictionally, of course. So this one is a few years after that. And so it's going to have some of the same existing characters in Oregon and Kentucky. And but it's been an interesting process in writing a series. I had never really planned that at all at the beginning.
So what's involved in writing a book series?
Well, it's a lot different than writing a standalone novel. Like Red Boots, I would never continue with the character. I mean, I could, but there's not enough in those characters that I would want to. I'd probably do a prequel if I did a type of thing instead of a sequel. So I have to be careful when I'm working with this one. With Koenig's Wonder, I didn't even create an outline. I just wrote the first draft, then followed up with an outline to see what was missing and such. But with doing a series, I have to make sure that my facts are correct from the first novel.
Well, there's a continuity.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then also introducing new characters and new plot structure and such. So it's been an interesting exercise again, and writing this. So it's the main thing for me was deciding if I can continue on with the story, and I started rereading it again. It was like, oh my gosh, here's all these little nuggets left over that I can take and run with. So.
Yeah, well, like you didn't, if you kill off a major character, I mean, it's pretty hard to resurrect him short of a vampire story, but as long as the...
And I don't do those.
No, I get that, yeah. So, that's kind of interesting. So I guess I was going to say, how do you develop your stories? But to some degree, you just sort of mining the story itself.
Exactly.
And kind of following the thread, picking up the threads, and kind of like, well, what happens after the last page?
Right.
Then
right.
life
And where
goes
are the
on.
characters when this new one starts up? What's happened between that timeline?
Because you put some space in between that.
Yeah, I have a few years breaking
Okay.
up between that. The main thing I do first off is to develop the characters again. Not only the existing ones and what they're doing now and that point in time when the story starts, but the new characters' development. And not only their physical appearance to keeping the blue eyes blue or whatever.
Right, of course.
But also, not too short or tall or whatever. But I like to do their backgrounds and kind of get into when and where were these characters born and what were their families like and what tics and traits do they have that make them act a certain way and why. Those are the fun parts for me.
What's my motivation?
Exactly. Why is he doing this?
Exactly, yeah.
And I hated getting into the serial killer's head when I was trying to write Red Boots, because that's not the kind of book I tend to like to even read. But
Well, yeah,
I
that's
don't get too graphic, but it's still, I had to do that in order to understand him, so that he wasn't just two-dimensional or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing I do first off, and then I develop a timeline to make sure that the events in the story stay together as well as the world events going on. And then researching those can totally change into a different direction for me. So it's really a fascinating process.
I can imagine. Do you have a schedule that you follow?
Not really. I end up writing whenever, I'm writing all the time. I'm always making notes, or
Okay.
in my head I'm developing, or the characters, or I see a scene in my head and I start writing something down and such. But when I do finally get in my, sit down to my computer, what I can call assuming the position of a writer button chair, and I start working, I can totally forget time and forget even what day it is and forget to eat and that sort of thing.
Because you're just caught up in the...
Oh, I get caught up in the story. One day I was working for about 6 hours straight, and then I decided to take a 5 o'clock, take a break and have a happy hour with my husband. And then after that, I went back to work, and when I finally stopped and I looked at the clock, I was surprised to see it was 6:30 the next morning.
Oh, my heavens,
I
wow.
had done a good long stretch.
But you
I
got a lot
had
accomplished.
So much accomplished, yes.
Wow, Linda, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
I'm really glad that you came today. It's wonderful to hear what you're up to, and I can't wait to read your next creation.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being
Appreciate it.
here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.